Hey friends, time to look at lesson 12. We're covering a brand new function. Well, not really brand new, but new to this unit. Talking about the tangent. Now we talked about tangent when we were doing sine and cosine in lessons 1 and 2. And you may remember some ideas like tangent is defined as sine divided by cosine. And I think we already looked at a lesson previously about how we can prove that that's true. Tangent is also known as opposite over adjacent, and that starts to make a little bit more sense, right? When we're thinking about a tangent of an angle, well, we have our x value, which we know as cosine, our y coordinate, which we know as sine, and the tangent of this function is the opposite, tangent of that angle is the opposite side, the sine, over the adjacent side, cosine. So it all comes back to these right triangles that we've been working with since lesson 1. We have a notice and a wonder for our tangent function, and we could start filling it out here, but I also noticed that the same kind of graph is over here, or chart is over here, so if you're okay with kind of bypassing that noticing and wondering and going here to this tangent ratio. It's asking us to complete the table in both places, so let's go ahead and complete the table. In the first one it was negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Here's negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, but then it continues all the way to 2 pi. So we're going to see some interesting things that are happening here. Alright. So first, let's go ahead and just complete this table all the way down for our cosines and our sine values. Alright. I'm going to keep on using my nifty unit circle. My decimal approximations that they're using, I see they're just taking everything to 2 decimal places, so I'm going to do the same. Alright. So 2 pi over 3, remember cosine is the x coordinate, that's our first column here. So we're looking here at 2 pi over 3, negative 0.5, and root 3 over 2 is approximately equal to 0.86. I'm sorry, 87 is what they're using. 5 pi over 6, negative 0.87, and 0.5. At pi, negative 1, 0. 7 pi over 6, negative 0.87, negative 0.5. 4 pi over 3, negative 0.5, negative 0.87. 3 pi over 2, 0, negative 1. 5 pi over 3, 0.5, negative 0.87. 11 pi over 6, sorry, my head's in the way. 11 pi over 6, 0.87, negative 0.5, and at 2 pi we're back here to 1, 0. Now we're going to just do some division, but we're going to start seeing some patterns, because just like you're seeing patterns here with all of these numbers, when we start having the same number divided by the other number, we're going to see it again and again and again and again on the unit circle. So a reminder that tangent is sine divided by cosine. Tangent at theta. Sine divided by, at negative pi over 2. Negative 1 divided by 0. I'm making that face because anything divided by 0 is undefined. Okay, so there's an undefined, we get an error. We call that undefined because we can't have anything that is divided by nothing. So if we know that that part is undefined, every time I have something that is dividing by 0, again here at pi over 2, there's a pattern for you. Also going to be undefined. And at 3 pi over 2, we're also dividing by 0, also undefined. Now let's go for the other easy ones, right? Let's find a pattern and let's stick with it. We have these other parts here, like at the starting point, 0, right here, where we're doing sine 0 divided by cosine 1. Well, 0 divided by 1, we can do that. Ooh, let me clear it out. It's just 0. So each one of these things where we are dividing by 1 or by -1, we're going to have some zeros in there. Look at that. We're already like a third of the way done. So we need some values here where we have 0.5 divided by -0.87. Positive divided by a negative, or in this case, sorry, sine divided by cosine, negative divided by positive, is going to equal a negative number. Okay? So we can even go through and determine which ones are negatives. Right? If either one of these is negative, then our division will be negative. These two are positives, so a positive divided by a positive is a positive. This will be a positive. Oop, here's one negative, so a positive divided by a negative is negative. Negative. Negative divided by a negative, positive. Positive, negative, negative. Huh, interesting. So we have this undefined point that is then followed by a couple negatives that turn to 0 and then turn positives, and then we hit another undefined point. Let's start figuring out what these would be. Negative 0.87 divided by positive 0.5. 1.74. 1.74. It's bigger than 1. Remember how our cosines and our sines were bouncing from -1, +1 to -1, +1, -1, +1. Tangents breaking that horizontal line at 1 and -1. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to keep on sticking with these ones where we have like a 0.87 divided by 0.5. Okay. Just keeping with that same kind of pattern. Notice how they're all going to be 1.74, and we already put the negative in front. So anything that is dividing by 0.5 is going to have a 1.74. Anything dividing by, so any cosine at -1/2 or +1/2 has that 1.74. I love when we see patterns. It makes us so much faster. Okay, just have one more set of division to do. This idea that we're looking at 1/2 divided by 0.87. In this case, it's a -1/2. But we already know it would be a negative answer. We're going to call that 0.057. And we're going to see again the same kind of patterns happening. It's just that they're turning positive in some cases. So we've filled in our table. We've seen how we've calculated these values. And so when we think about how are the values of tangent like the values of cosine and sine, and how are they different? Well, we already kind of pointed out a couple things that are the same and a couple things that are different. Nice little T-chart going on. We already said that tangent can go greater than 1 and less than -1. Breaks that ceiling going on there. Tangent has some places that are undefined. These undefined values. What makes them the same is that we're still seeing some of the same cycles. Alright, so these are still both periodic. They're all periodic functions. Because we saw cycles where they start repeating patterns that are happening. Okay? Alright, so that wraps up our 12.2. You can take a look about Are You Ready for More? But I think we're ready to kind of move on to what that function is going to look like.